How's it going, guys? And welcome back to another episode of the Howdy Hoopers pod. Today we're going to be talking about 5 dark horse MVPs. In the NBA right now, there's so much talent, but it seems like there's 5 players that have separated themselves in the MVP conversation and no one else is getting talked about. Those 5 players are Jokic, Giannis, SGA, Luka, and Jason Tatum. But I feel like there's a lot of other really good NBA players that aren't getting the recognition they deserve. So we're going to be going over 5 players that I've enjoyed watching this season that have been playing at an MVP level, but because there's so much talent in the NBA right now, they're getting overlooked. The first player I want to talk about is Anthony Davis. Anthony Davis is a player that many people have talked about how he could be in this conversation for a long time, since back in his days in New Orleans, where his last 2 or 3 couple seasons, he was averaging 28 points per game and was taking the league over by storm. I remember at one point he was averaging like 40 points through the first 5 or 6 games. And if you played 2K, you know that he had moments cards coming out every single week because he had such dominant performances, and people truly believed he was going to average 40 points per game. Obviously it died off, but 28 points per game is still crazy. And then he went on to be traded to the Lakers, took a backseat to LeBron, and is finally taking over with this new offense with JJ Redick. And this is the first season since his second or third last seasons in New Orleans, that he's averaged 28 points per game. So he's averaging 28 points per game, 11 rebounds, and 2 blocks. But there's a couple downfalls to this. One of the reasons why I feel like he's not as high on this list is because those 5 players that I mentioned, they all average around those numbers, but their team also has better team success. Maybe the Nuggets are about the same level, but Jokic is putting up like a 35-point triple-double, it seems like, every single night. You got SGA, who's the best team in the Western Conference, Jason Tatum, who's the second best team in the Eastern Conference, where the Lakers are only 13-11 right now, which is a drawback. But one thing about Anthony Davis that I feel like boosts him up on this list is he's one of the only players on this list that plays both sides of the ball, and he plays it at a high level. Not only is he a dark horse for MVP, but he's also a dark horse for DPOY, it seems like, every single year. So not only looking at his stats, which are all offensive stats, but you got to account for how good he is on the defensive end as well. So I feel like that's one reason why he's boosted so high up on this list. And none of these players are in a specific order. It's just the order I wanted to talk about them in. But the next player I wanted to talk about is a player on a team that has made a huge jump that no one saw. They went on a huge winning streak, and it took almost near 20 games before they lost a single game. And the player I'm talking about is Donovan Mitchell. I've seen Donovan Mitchell play a lot. I'm a really big Jazz fan. I saw him play his first game as a Jazz man, and I've watched him all the way through this point. And I wouldn't necessarily say this is one of his best scoring seasons. This year he's only averaging 24 points per game. But it's not only the numbers is the reason why he's here. 24 points per game is amazing, but there's a lot of other players that are averaging that much or more. But the reason why Donovan's on this list is because his style of play is helping contribute to his team being the best team in the Eastern Conference. Right now, they're 21-4, and a lot of that goes to Donovan Mitchell. Obviously, there's other players like Jared Allen and also Darius Garland, along with Evan Mobley and other players like that are really helping. But Donovan Mitchell is the leader of this team, and I feel like his numbers of 24 points per game, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists don't show how much of an impact he's playing. I feel like his percentage, when I looked, it was about 45%, which isn't great, but also, like I was saying, his leadership, him buying in on the defensive end more than normal is what's setting this team apart. And I feel like he's a player that deserves to be, higher up on the MVP conversation than he really is. But because his numbers don't show it and people not watching the Cavs as closely as they should, he's lower on this list than he should be. And I feel like he's probably on this list, maybe should be the 6th man on this MVP chart. But going into that, I was going to say that Donovan Mitchell is arguably the best, shooting guard in the NBA right now. His team has really good success, but the next player we're going to talk about is the other player that people are arguing that's the best shooting guard in the NBA, and that's Anthony Edwards. Anthony Edwards last season He's been really good these last couple seasons and even was really good his rookie season, but he really made his name known last season and has carried through this season. Something that's really stood out about Anthony Edwards this season is the guy shooting, 43% from the three-point line this year. And that was what most people on the offensive end would say was his weakness. And now he's taking nearly 10 three-pointers a game and making almost 5 of them a game, which is crazy because he's probably the most athletic or second or third most athletic player in the entire NBA. So for him to be this high up on this list for three-pointers and athleticism, I just don't see how he can't be this high on the MVP rankings. But the one reason why I feel like he has a big downfall is his team success is a lot lower than it was last season. This year they're 12-11, and last year they finished 56-26, which is almost 70% win percentage, and this season they're almost at 50%. So I feel like that's one reason why he's dropped so low, and I feel like it's not even his fault because this is probably the best season he's ever had. I feel like the switch of Cat for Julius Randle has been the biggest downfall for this team and them just having to figure it out again. But he's also having, one of the best Timberwolves seasons we've ever seen, probably since KG, but it's just sad to see that he's not getting talked about because his team success isn't as high. And then we have 2 more players on this list. There were 2 players that didn't make the cut for different reasons. I felt like Ja Morant just wasn't quite good enough to make my top 5. He's put in about 23 points per game this season, and I just felt like it wasn't as good as some of these other players. But the other player is Paolo Banchero. And the reason he didn't make it was because he's injured and has been out for so long. But I wanted to give him a shout out because he definitely would have been on this list. And if he gets healthy and we make another video like this in the future, he'll definitely be on that list because he's been one of the biggest breakout players this season and has made the Magic one of the best teams in the NBA. With him and Franz now being out, it's going to be a little hard. I don't know where they're going to stay, but hopefully both those players can get back quick and we can see the Magic, stay in the playoff hunt and be able to prove themselves in the Eastern Conference. The next player I want to talk about, probably going to go over these 2 players a little quicker than the rest. They're a little bit lower on my rankings. But the next one is De'Aaron Fox. He's put in about the same numbers as he did last season. But every single time I turn on a Kings game, it seems like he's the best player on the court no matter who they're playing. This season he's put up 26 points, 5 rebounds, and 5 assists, which is almost identical to last season. But like I said, it seems like he's controlling the game. It seems like he's almost always the best player in the court at all times, which is the reason why I wanted to put him on this list. He's a player that doesn't get the credit he deserves. He just recently came out with a signature shoe, which is really cool, but he's just not getting the hype he deserves because he's on the Kings, and the Kings aren't, one of these top teams like all these 5 players I named at the beginning of the video that are in the top 5 for MVP voting. This season, his team is 12-13, but one thing I've noticed about being an MVP candidate, you have to have big moments that people remember, and I feel like De'Aaron Fox has this. In back-to-back nights, he had 60 points, and then the following night he had 49 points, which is crazy enough to have 49 or 60 points, but being able to do it back-to-back nights is so impressive. Being able to have the defense focus on you, and you just be able to go out there and drop bucket after bucket is pretty incredible, and I think is another reason why I have him so high on this list is because of that big moments that I remember from that, but him just being able to impact the Kings and be able to help them. They're below 500 at the moment, and they're in the hard Western Conference, but I also think that he doesn't get the respect he deserves for the numbers he's putting up. And the last player I want to talk about, he's a player that's putting up some crazy numbers, but is just on a really bad team, and that's LaMelo Ball. This season, he's been healthy enough to play. We haven't seen him play in a while. Who knows, we might have seen this the last 2 seasons, but he's just been injured, and so it's been hard to be able to gauge how good he is. But this season, he's putting up 31 points per game, which is the 3rd most in the NBA, only behind, I think, Giannis and Jokic. But he's also having 5 rebounds and 7 assists. But his team is 7-17, which is the 3rd worst in the Eastern Conference, which definitely doesn't help his MVP, case. But we're seeing him play like how he played when he was in Chino Hills, where he's able to just run and gun, be able to throw crazy passes, take one-legged shots, which is really fun to watch. If I was someone that was telling a new person that's trying to get into the NBA what team to watch or what player to watch, I would tell him to watch LaMelo Ball because he plays super high pace. He's taking lots of threes. He's making crazy passes, and it's just a lot of fun to watch. I don't know how much, this play style contributes to winning, but it's been a lot of fun to watch. He's putting up really great numbers, and for how young he is, it's going to be exciting to see, in the future if this contributes to winning. But yeah, I just have a lot of fun watching LaMelo Ball this year. It's kind of how it reminds me how it was with Tyrese Halliburton last year. Obviously, he's struggling this year, but it kind of reminds me of that, how fun the Pacers were to watch last season with LaMelo Ball and the style he plays. It makes me think of back when the Pacers were that run and gun and Tyrese Halliburton was hitting step back threes and making crazy passes. But that's how I see LaMelo Ball right now. But those are my top 5, dark horse MVPs this far into the season. We're about 20 games in. But I want you guys to drop in the comments who your dark horse MVPs are. If you agree with mine or if you have other ones to add, drop them down in the comments. But I'll catch you guys in the next one. Peace.